On July 3rd, TQSOI's food security team responded to the heartfelt invitation from Cedar Park United to visit their wonderful gardens.
The outdoor space here had always had some beautiful gardens, but many years ago. And the congregation was bigger, there were more active gardeners. And then over time, it slowed, as the congregation aged a bit, it fell into disrepair. So a number of years ago, maybe 6 years ago, it was in quite bad shape. So none of what you see here was here, except maybe some of the vegetable beds.
And then there was a pandemic.
And so was it before or after the pandemic? We decided, a number of people said, let's see if we can, recover some of this space. And we actually reached out to the national church and got some money to help us kickstart some projects. And those first projects, we had, two big ones. So down in this area here, we installed what we call a healing garden. It's morphed slightly over the years. Originally, it was an indigenous medicine wheel healing garden. And we still hope to go back to that. That was one thing. And so that area was mud before, and we had drainage problems as well. So we actually, in conjunction with that project, installed some drainage and a rain garden, which we can show a little bit more later. In the backyard was a jungle. It was just overgrown with buckthorn and other invasive shrubs. You could barely even move in there. It was so bad. So we removed all of that and created what we called a backyard oasis, and that was sort of a outdoor gathering place for our seniors
and our kids who like to roll down the hill.
So that's the other thing where, the church is very multi-generational. So we've got very young kids and very old people, and they all actually participate in what we call now our earth ministry. So it's a little bit more than traditional church garden. It's multifunctional. And, the other thing that sort of got kickstarted once we had these spaces is a very interesting initiative, which Martha and Joanne started, called Vacation Creation Camp. So we'll talk definitely a bit more about that, because that's really where you see that intergenerational aspect of our gardens. To have vegetable areas dedicated more for vegetable gardening. And the objective is to actually contribute to food security on the West Island. So we do that in partnership with West Island Mission. We started off with urban seedlings, planted our beds initially. And lately what we've expanded to think about a little bit more, more environmentally aware is, in addition to vegetable gardening, we're doing other kinds of, ecological gardening. And this year, again, through the National Church, got a little bit of money to take out some more invasive shrubbery and install some native plants to increase local biodiversity. And we did that in partnership, actually, with the city of Point Claire, because this year they actually initiated also sort of a program to encourage ecological gardening of all their citizens. So that's the other kind of pillar for our guidelines for what we're trying to do here, is to be a good neighbor, and show what it means to be a good neighbor, especially in the context of environmental and ecological stewardship.
Okay. And for us, the neighbors aren't just the people. I think that's the thing too, right? The neighbors are the animals and the creatures, and we like to widen that idea of neighbor.
Yes. Good. Yep. This is our courtyard. And this is where we grow our vegetable gardens. You can also see our beautiful flower friends. So this is how we incorporate that all of creation are our neighbors. So it's the plants, it's the trees, it's the birds, it's the animals, it's the insects. Anything that's really alive around you is part of creation. That we truly believe, and we want everyone else to see that too. So our neighbors are people of all sorts. And here you will see our 2 garden beds. We hope to actually make more. But right now we have these 2, and in the past 4 years, this is our 4th year, we have been able to harvest at least 8 different times during the summer and give the food to West Island Mission. So you will see in this very, very small space, we've been able to do actually quite a lot of good things. Tomatoes, peppers, beans, some basil in between, some this we have figured out this is tobacco. That's for indigenous.
Minister who got those seeds and she started the seedling, right? She got it from an indigenous friend, I believe. And I think she wanted to leave it with us.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yes, exactly. And actually, yes, our part-time minister, Jessica Goodgate, she was the person who started some of these in her own home. So earlier this year, she planted the seeds and she grew them and she brought them over just for us. And we're very grateful for that. Over on this side, we have lettuce and garlic and eggplant over there and some sweet peas growing up there and tiny little carrots over there. We'll harvest more of this lettuce before it goes to seed. And then as time goes on, we will just harvest a little bit more. And as the month goes on in July, we will actually get quite a large bucket of good food. Vacation Creation Camp. Like I said, this is our 4th summer. And it was Martha and I had this brilliant idea that really came from the sky. Come over here, Martha. To figure out how to get more people involved in gardening here at Cedar Park United. So we flipped the script. We flipped the metaphor. And we said, how are people going to come here? How are kids going to come here? How are elderly people going to come here? Let's make the vegetables and the plants the campers because they stay here. And let's make the people the counselors because we come and help and counsel, water and weed all the plants.
And there's often this idea of, oh no, we don't have enough people to do the thing. And people get worried and we'll never find enough people to do the thing. And so Joanne was the one because I was saying that out loud. Who will we find this summer to make sure that this stuff survives? And then you said, but it needs to be fun. It needs to be delightful. And so the camp idea, I think, and I think for us, I think you can hear us already that it's an affair of the heart with the garden. It's not, they're not.
I can see it on your faces, actually.
And so you have to transform the hearts of your gardeners. And when their hearts have gotten there, then they then they love it and they want to care for it. But if it's a chore we've got to get somebody to do, it's not the same thing. And for that, I think it's been kind of a resounding success in this community where it has become an affair of the heart.
So nice.
So this is the courtyard cabin. And I was telling some of our volunteers just now, the first year we had a nurse. I remember we were like, who is the camp nurse? Who do we send them to if one of the campers is sick? And I think you guys are co-nurses. I think that's what it is.
So speaking about volunteers, how many volunteers do you have here for all gardens that you can count on?
So this summer, we have a shared calendar throughout the summer for this program. And we have 6 different teams, or there a couple or a single person that's working on it. So I would say we're kind of a dozen maybe.
But what we did at the beginning of this year in the spring, that's when we had our project. We called it Nature Connections. And that was the one that we did in partnership, with a church grant, but also with a local Point Claire gardener who is really a subject matter expert in that area, and also the city of Point Claire, their sustainable and ecological development planning group. We not only planted sort of a hedgerow with native plants, but we also had some presentations or lectures where somebody would give somebody gave a presentation with that educational aspect of how can I, as just a homeowner with a small garden, make a difference to local native biodiversity. And it is possible, and it does make a difference. But understanding why is it important, that is missing for a lot of people. So, the educational aspect of these gardens, I think, is as important as, whatever comes out of it. Any produce that gets produced, because especially with the young people, once they have that understanding, then they carry that through their whole lives, and you can apply it everywhere in your life. Not just if you're doing something here, but also at home, at your cottage, everywhere. This healing garden, because I mentioned when we first created this, it was with the idea of it being an indigenous healing garden. So indigenous from the perspective of having indigenous native plants, but also connections to our indigenous peoples. And from that, it was also sort of a supporting activity around truth and reconciliation. United Church is very much a proponent of that movement. And the thing that I think maybe is surprising for people is that connection with the earth and the natural environment is an underlying theme of all faiths everywhere. Depending on the particular church, you don't see it very much, but it's there. So whether it's, so Muslim, Jewish, Christian, indigenous faith, it's, that connection with the earth is there. And so the secondary, well, not even secondary, one of the functions or purposes of this healing garden, it is actually also as a place of spiritual growth and contemplation. I mean, the church, our church, has actually had services out here with people standing around the healing garden, and people come here, just strangers off the street, and sit to sit.
Or they lie face down in the creeping time.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
If you see a body, she's fine. It's me.
Wet.
Highly recommend.
And we over on that other side, one of the other early projects I neglected to mention, we created a labyrinth in the lawn, and you could still see it, but you have to be standing in it to see it. So that was a sort of an initiative from our previous lead minister who retired, and that very much is a focus for spiritual contemplation. And I've been working out here in the garden, and I've seen people a year ago, there was a young man, he was in his 20s. He would come at like twice a week, obviously coming from work. He would pull up his car, park, take off his shoes and everything, and sit and meditate in that space. And so, this is part of who we are too, where, you don't have to be a member of this church to come and enjoy these spaces. Everybody is welcome.
I'll remember the earth.
Yes.
So here it's like a little bridge
I don't know
into a different area altogether, where it's a little bit sunken from the rest of the land. And we cross the bridge, and we have chairs here. We have more chairs that we can bring out. And then, so the first thing you can notice is that there's a scent of the thyme. So you can take that literally and figuratively. You can contemplate here. You can watch the bees and butterflies, and you can really use all your senses to calm down, to relax, to know that this is also real too, that it's not all just the distractions of the world, that nature is something that we belong to, and just to relax, just enjoy.
We did it as a community. We created this circle together, and people brought decorated stones. This was sent from BC from a family that had a couple that had moved away, and this was made by their granddaughter and sent to us. And they're all around, actually. We did some in worship once, and people just brought them in. And I wonder if this year it's time to do it again, add some new ones.
Well, I wanted to talk about whether is the idea of actually a food forest, which is sort of taking the idea of gardening and food supply to the next level.
On our walkway, we have two beds over there, and those are herbs. And you can also use that as aromatherapy. So you just like put your hand on like the lavender or the basil, and then just smell, and that's part of, food too. The smells and the tastes. It's everything about your senses.
Use the word evolving, and I think this place very much is evolving. So even though it's been a few years since we started, there's still a lot to do and a lot of new ideas to try to incorporate, like this area that we just passed with the grass growing. So these are actually, non-native grasses, but the idea is to somehow at least transform this area into a native meadow garden. So it's sort of like short grass prairie that used to be all over, well, not all over, but a dominant ecological zone in Quebec. So again, trying to reintroduce some of that. Just again, it's beneficial. It's going to have attract pollinators and sustain them. But at the same time, it's a bit of an education for people to realize that these spaces are important. To maintain these spaces, to maintain biodiversity, as opposed to the monocultural agriculture industry.
We like to remind people that it's actually not something that's trying to get you lost like a maze is. It's trying to help you find yourself. And so you can come into it with whatever space you have, but the idea is it's a long walk. And when you get to the center, you can let go of whatever it is you want to let go, or set your intention, or whatever you want to do ceremoniously sort of at the center. And then you walk back out into the world. And it's sort of shaped after the one in Chartres. And people in the Middle Ages used to use these on their church floors when they were peasants and they couldn't go on a huge pilgrimage to actually do a pilgrimage. So they could do it
Locally,
and so it began as a spiritual practice that way. We also have one on our inside sanctuary floor that was also done during the pandemic, which was painted by hand with lots of love.
Scraggly area that's along here on the eastern edge of our property is our brand new and just getting started local natural biodiversity hedgerow. And all along here, it was overgrown with invasive buckthorn and other invasive shrubs. And so we ripped all that out and replaced it with all native shrubs and native perennials. And right now, there's some weeds trying to compete, which we'll remove. But over time, this will grow. We actually have, there's a crabapple here, but it will be sort of like a multi-story space, low-level plants, mid-level shrubs, and then some small trees. One of the other presentations we had was about sort of encouraging pollinators, but specifically for butterflies and monarch butterflies. And we did, it was a bit of a partnership with a group called Planet SOS that definitely promotes planting pollinator gardens for monarchs in particular. And as you may or may not know, the plant that monarchs love is milkweed. But what you may not know is that there are, at least there's more than three principal types of milkweed. And the common milkweed, which you see everywhere, is, it's much loved by monarchs, but it's maybe not the best thing for your home garden. So there's two other kinds that we have planted here. One is called swamp milkweed, and as from its name you might guess, it likes a moister soil. That one has got a beautiful, vibrant pink flower. And then the second one, which we have a couple over in the drier area, is called butterfly milkweed, which is a beautiful orange flower. It likes a drier soil. And those ones are nicely well behaved. They'll create a clump, but they won't go everywhere in your yard. So we planted a bunch of that in this area and also on the other side of the property.
Thank you, Joanne, Martha, and Jamie, for the wonderful tour of the gardens.